Can these skeletons actually beat Dummy 13? You asked me to build them in the comments, so today we're finally testing them. I picked up two versions, a silver skeleton and a darker, more natural looking one. We'll check the build, articulation, and poses, and fix problems along the way. And at the end, I'll compare them directly with Dummy 13. And this is how the skeletons arrived, on frames like these. The color is actually pretty nice and vibrant. But right away, you can see there are quite a few little blobs of plastic and paint all over the parts. The instructions are about as simple as they could possibly be. And right here, it actually shows that you can swap a lot of parts between the skeletons and the knights. Speaking of the knights, here they are. But unfortunately, they're not sold as one set. You have to buy everything separately. We'll take a closer look at the knights in the next video. But first, let's see what we actually got on these frames. And yeah, the finish isn't great. There are quite a few paint defects, scuffs, and tiny plastic blobs that need cleaning up. The problem is, when I remove them, some of the paint comes off too. The head is also surprisingly hard to install. I had to use a lot of force, and even then, there was still a visible gap. You can see the same issues on the chest and the ribs. More plastic blobs and scuffed paint. And what's this? Apparently it's a tiny magnet. So yes, technically we can stick our skeleton to the fridge. That's pretty cool. The silver skeleton has the biggest problem. Whenever I clean off the excess plastic, the silver paint comes off too, exposing the black plastic underneath. The natural colored version has similar blobs, but they blend in much better. With the silver one, the paint really needs to be perfect. And unfortunately, it isn't. I forgot the jaw. And you can't just put the jaw in like this. You actually have to take the head apart, so you need to assemble it in a different order. First insert the jaw and only then put the head together. Let me show you up close. The mechanism is actually pretty cool, and I really like how the head looks. You do need quite a lot of force to put it together though, and I really don't like these scuffed areas and this huge gap. I'm definitely going to repaint it. I have a really good silver paint that I've already used on some other builds. Check them out if you haven't, by the way. The overall construction is extremely simple. There aren't many parts, and there's no articulation in the stomach area. Now let's build the arm. And here I made a mistake. The upper arm should have one bone, while the forearm should have two, so I need to swap these parts. Luckily, everything comes apart really easily. There we go. Now it actually looks anatomically correct. On a real skeleton, you have one bone in the upper arm and two bones in the forearm. And I really like the articulation here. This thing should be able to pull off some great poses. But there's an anatomical mistake in the instructions. The thigh should have one bone, while the lower leg should have two. Here, they've done the opposite. You can even see it clearly in the instructions. It's a very nerdy complaint, but yes, it is technically wrong. And again, whenever I clean up these parts, the silver paint comes off too. So I'm stuck choosing between leaving the plastic blobs or damaging the paint. That's actually a pretty big downside if you're not planning to repaint the figure. Oh, and there are magnets in the heels too. Nice. The legs are just as simple to build. Compared to Dummy 13, this skeleton is much easier and faster to assemble. The only issue is that some parts fit very tightly, so younger kids might struggle with them. And look at this up close. There are a lot of tiny paint and plastic blobs everywhere. Ideally, all of this should be cleaned up. But I think once I repaint the figure, it should look much better. We also get this staff as the skeleton's weapon, and that basically finishes the silver skeleton. The design has a lot of potential, but right now the damaged paint really holds it back. Now let's move on to the more natural colored version. I'm hoping this one will look much better. It doesn't have the same silver coating, so all those little defects are far less noticeable. Overall, it already looks much cleaner. Let's clean all these shavings off the table and move on to the natural colored skeleton. The head takes a lot of force to install. Honestly, this one was even tighter than the silver version. What I really like about this color is that all the gaps and small defects are much less noticeable. On the silver skeleton, this gap looks like an obvious flaw. Here it almost looks intentional. The only real issue I can see is that one eye isn't fully painted, but that's an easy fix with some black acrylic paint. There are also a few marks where the parts were attached to the frames. I'll paint over those later, and I think the figure will look much cleaner. Overall, I really like how this one is turning out. It still takes quite a bit of force to assemble though.
Oof.
There's also much less cleanup needed compared to the silver skeleton, so I barely have to use the files. Alright, here's how both figures look so far. Now let's fix them up. I'll start with the natural colored one. A little black paint on the eye, plus some touch-ups on the frame marks, already makes a big difference. You could even customize this figure further with modeling clay or extra details. I think you could make something really epic, like some of my Terminator or Steve customs. Now let's fix the silver skeleton. The first thing I want to do is cover this huge gap. The acrylic paint fills it surprisingly well, and the skull immediately looks much cleaner. Then I touch up the scuffed areas and the spots where the paint came off. And honestly, it already looks much better. I didn't go too crazy with the cleanup though. If you really wanted to, you could sand the whole figure properly and repaint it completely from scratch. But honestly, this isn't really a shelf figure. It feels much more like something made to be played with and customized however you want. Now let's leave both figures to dry. And here's how they turned out. Let's check out the silver one first. The skull looks much better now. That big gap is gone, the scuffs are covered, and overall the figure looks much cleaner. There are still some molding imperfections and excess plastic, so you can definitely tell these were made pretty cheaply, but I still really like it. These skeletons are incredibly fun to play with, maybe even more than Dummy 13. The articulation is great, you can get them into tons of poses, and most importantly, nothing feels loose or wobbly. They also have a lot of customization potential. You could add modeling clay, build up the torso, or turn them into completely different characters, like I did with my Terminator and Minecraft zombie customs. And the magnets are actually really cool. You can stick the skeleton to the fridge in all kinds of poses, and it holds surprisingly well. Now let's compare it with Dummy 13. Even really good Dummy 13 figures have more moving parts, which means there are also more pieces that can loosen over time. The skeletons are much simpler, with fewer joints and fewer parts, but they're still extremely playable. Dummy 13 definitely wins when it comes to range of motion and more natural anatomical movement. It has more articulation points, including in areas like the feet and toes. The skeletons are simpler and some joints can move in ways that aren't anatomically realistic. So Dummy 13 is more flexible and refined, but these skeletons are sturdier, simpler, and honestly really fun to play with. And of course, Dummy 13 already has a huge advantage when it comes to accessories. Weapons, wings, different hands, female versions, and a lot more. The skeletons don't really have anything like that yet, but they do have the knight sets. So subscribe if you don't want to miss that review. We'll build them, compare them with the skeletons, and try mixing some of the parts together. And here's the final look at what we made today. Also, let me know in the comments if you want me to turn one of these into a zombie or some kind of a half-human, half-skeleton monster. I think adding a body, arms, and maybe some torn clothes could look really cool. And if you want to support the channel, leave a like and literally any comment. It only takes you a few seconds, but it really helps the video and motivates me to keep making more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!